Hello and welcome to tonight's edition of Plus Politics. Now, President Muhammadu Buhari has returned to Abuja after his visit to Lagos today to inaugurate some developmental projects executed by the Lagos State government. Now, many have complained that already commissioned projects on the president's last visit a year ago are yet to be used. Joining me now in our Lagos studio, we have Francis Chilaka, a public affairs analyst. Good to have you join us.
Thank you very much.
And Fumi, it's always a pleasure to have you. Fumi Ayoladusimo, thank you very much for joining us.
Nice to meet you.
Now, guys, let's start off with today's visit from the president. Coming all the way from Abuja, and we are looking at the commissioning of the reconstructed Oshodi International Airport Road, the Oshodi Transport Interchange, 820 mass transit buses, and some would say the biggest headline for today, the Aike House, ultra-modern 170-bed obstetrics and gynecology specialist hospital located within Lasut. How do you feel about today's activities?
I personally think that the president didn't have to come all the way to come and honestly speaking, to come and commission some of these projects. Some of these projects are not even completed. I understand the fact that the governor, because he's leaving, wants to be shown as being the one who started the project or nearly completed it. Maybe that's why they had to do this this sham of a commissioning. But the honest truth is that, I was in Oshodi last week, and I remember telling the person I was with that, when are they going to complete this thing? So it's nowhere near completion, and there's no reason for it to have been commissioned.
Now, Francis, also weighing on this matter, out of these 4 projects that we've reeled out, which one seemingly caught your fancy to say, oh,
No.
Tell me more.
Let me put it this way. Governance is a continuum. None of these projects has been completed.
No, we've had the upgrade of the Aike House from 70 to 180.
We're talking of upgrading the system that is already there. Why must it be recommissioned? Was it not commissioned before? What is the message to Nigerians? The message to Nigerians is the fact that, Ambode is going. He wants to take credit for everything. So the new governor that is coming in, if he decides tomorrow not to complete these other projects, what happens?
I think it's going to be a really heated discussion today.
Yes, what happens? Because
gentlemen, lady, let's take a quick break and then we'll be back shortly. You're still watching Plus Politics, and before we took a short break, our focus definitely is being on the biggest story of today, the president's visit to Lagos State. And we have for me Ayoladusimo, a public affairs analyst. It was quite an interesting start. Thank you very much for still staying behind. And we also have Francis Chilaka as well, a public affairs analyst. Ladies, gentlemen, we were talking about the reconstructed Oshodi International Airport Road, the Oshodi Transport Interchange, 820 mass transit buses, as well as the Aike House, ultra-modern 170-bed obstetrics and gynecology specialist hospital located within Lasut, commissioned today. Is this a success in your own opinion, Francis?
I don't know when you guys talk about success. I don't understand how you rate your own success. Let us even leave Aike House. Let's leave that apart. Now let's look at the airport road that is not completed. Let us look at the Oshodi interchange that is not completed. And then let's look at the buses. What has happened to BRT? No, what has happened to BRT?
BRT.
See, these buses have become damaged, they become useless. There is no maintenance.
I beg to disagree.
No, please let me finish. You will agree later. Now you're bringing out another 800 and something buses. Which roads are these buses going to apply?
The same roads we have already existed.
The same roads. Oh God.
No, you see, we have to understand that the point of the BRT buses. Okay, yes, we have some that are damaged. They're not all working. But the truth of the matter is that no matter how we want to look at it, those BRT buses actually alleviate some people's transport worries. Yes, they're still on the road. It's not like you don't see the buses. They're on the road. They're not as many as they used to be. Some have broken down, but the buses are still working.
But let me throw a counter argument.
No, there are also routes that the buses haven't been to. All the Kwaja, all the roads that they just did on that side. You don't have BRT.
So are you saying? Are you now saying that? No. Are you now saying that the government needs to pave another road for them?
No. The roads are there.
Okay, let her just finish up then.
You know, we don't have buses plying those roads. They're supposed to have buses. If you go from Tejo Show or Oyingbo, all that, they're supposed to have BRT buses. They have the lanes already there. But there are no buses there because they don't have enough buses.
So you think there's 820
yes. So the truth of the matter is that the buses are not enough. This is Lagos State. We have over 17 million people. Those buses were never enough on time. So this additional one, I think it's, let's be honest. And
okay, now, Francis, some would also say, she is saying that they are not enough, and then having an additional of 820 would bring some level of ease. But looking at the trail that we've had past, to what extent now should we be taking our maintenance culture really seriously, talking about
we don't have anything called, I mean, look at the roads. The roads these buses will ply are the same roads you and I use. The roads are not there. So if you're going to push in these buses now, which road are you going to start creating another pathway for them? Because you're talking about new areas that these buses have to go into. Now, let me tell you what this government should have done that would have made more sense. Is to take away all these yellow buses from the street, from the road. Take them out.
Some would say it's a gradual process. That's why we are having this crunches.
Let me tell you. Do you know what Uber and Taxify has done to Nigerians? It's helping transportation a lot. It's become a better system. You need to see the menace of these yellow buses on the road. You need to see it. What the government should be thinking about is how to remove them. Bring in new buses, smaller buses that can maneuver. You're bringing in long buses that cannot even maneuver anymore. You and I know how many BRT buses that were put on the street. How many of them are functional today?
I think you're looking at it from a very wrong point of view. You see, those yellow buses, they still have the crowd that they still...
Some say they still have their relevance.
They still have,
then facing them off has to just be gradual.
You see, the way things are done, you just don't push them off the street. You're going to just make life difficult for other people, for the people that use those buses.
And then the menace the cost of the society.
And the truth of the matter, even you talk about...
Have you gone from Oshodi to
before
to
BRT showed up?
No, have you gone from Oshodi to Mile 2? These guys take one way. They don't give a shit what's going on. They take one way.
Well, I think we'll just have to mind our language a little bit. We can't say certain words on air. But now let's shift our focus now a little bit to the Oshodi transport interchange. Some have described this as incomplete, and there is no need for commissioning something incomplete. What do you also make of this as well?
No, that place is really, really beautiful. Take it for me. And like I said, I was in Oshodi last week and I looked at it. This will really be beautiful.
Did it look complete in your perspective?
But it is nowhere near being complete. It isn't actually nowhere near being complete. I agree. But the truth of the matter is that, like I said earlier on, there must be a reason why they're commissioning it before completion. Maybe this is just a thinking in my mind. I'm thinking maybe they've paid off all the contractors. It's just for them to put the finishing touches. Maybe the president wants to show support for Governor Ambode. You know, maybe he's in Lagos, and because he's in Lagos, commission some other thing. They said, okay, let's throw this in.
Why the rush then?
I'm just thinking that maybe.
Francis, quickly now, some have also said that the Ambode administration could have done the needful, wait until completion, hand over this project over to the Sanwo-Olu administration that is coming in soon. What do you make of that stance as well?
For me, governance is continuum. Until we adopt that system in Nigeria, things will not work. I don't see the hurry for an outgoing governor who has not completed certain projects to be in a rush to commission them. It doesn't speak well of us as a people.
But what about those that would also argue that we've seen cases whereby an administration moves out and those projects are just left as standstill?
So what gives you the impression now that these ones that are not completed will be completed by the new administration? Was it not last year that the president was here to commission the
Ikeja bus terminal? 1 year and 26 days to be precise.
So what happened? Has it been put into use? So why are we always so much in a hurry? Commission. I think it's just that some people like to see their names on the plug and hanging out there, cutting scissors. That's the point.
How do you react to this, that the bus terminal, the Ikeja bus terminal, it came with a whole lot of fanfare. Movement was also obstructed once again. Some have even said that why do we have to block the roads when the president is coming into the country, into the state? But now, a year and 26 days, and a bus terminal that was commissioned, just like we had the Caesar Cotton movement, ribbon cutting moment, and we are still waiting. So what gives us the impression that this time around the same thing wouldn't happen come next year and 26 days or even more?
It's the truth, the way I look at things, right? There's a lot more under the carpet than we see. There's so much happening in Nigeria, particularly when it comes to politicking and stuff like this, right? The Ikeja bus terminal, for instance, I believe that there's a what was the word? From what I understood, there was actually a court injunction or something on it. Right? Somebody took Lagos State to court on it, which is why it is presently not being used.
Has the government given an excuse that seemingly goes
because I'm hearing this for the first time?
No, I heard this. I heard not too long ago, but I heard it.
Was the court injunction before the commissioning or after the commissioning?
That's another question.
Yes.
How do you react to this bus terminal now? It's supposed to fill no less than 100,000 routes, and not even one has been plied so far.
You know, we've come back to the same thing I'm saying. You know, we're so much in a hurry to write our names in gold, but we're not patient enough to let the gold pass through the fire it should pass through.
Okay. 3 out of these 4 projects seemingly have not ticked the button or ticked the box for you. But let's look at ICARE now. We have the upgrade from an 80-bed to a 170-bed obstetrics and gynecology facility within LASUT. And this is supposed to help the training, teaching, and then a knowledge base of the medical students, and also reduce this mortality rates that we have in the state and the country at large. You should be impressed at least with this, aren't you?
With the ICARE house?
Yes.
No, the ICARE house.
There is an upgrade. State-of-the-art equipment. We also have 30 incubators with automatic oxygen delivery.
About 3 years ago? I think it was 4 years ago when President Buhari came to that, they put some new upgrade in Luth. You know, they got new equipment in their X-ray department and all that. 4 weeks down the line, the machines were not there. They were no longer there. The truth of the matter is, I will hold my peace and give ICARE house another 2 months. If I go back there in 2 months and the equipment are still there, then I will know that there's something coming out of it.
What about you? How do you feel about ICARE house and marking a milestone?
Service delivery in terms of the medical field, beautiful. Maintenance, zero. That's where my problem is. My problem lies with being able to maintain the structures. Look at the Federal Secretariat. It's there, wasting away. Look at the National Theatre. Look at the National Stadium. Why do we always, each new government wakes up from sleep and they start a new elephant project, and they cannot look at the old ones and maintain them? Like she said, we like buying new things rather than maintaining the old ones. It's a very terrible culture in Nigeria.
What sort of?
Because now, what I'm getting at is that the new incoming government will most likely close their eyes and start something new.
Can I ask a question?
It is a clean slate, and some would expect that taking cues from all of the mistakes made and improving on the successes and areas of challenges, you would learn all of these lessons and know that a maintenance culture has to be built to make your mark.
Can I just put something on the table here? Question is, do we have a budget for maintenance? Is the question you should ask. In all these places, are there budgets for maintenance? If yes, what happens to it? Is it the government?
Now,
because you see, sometimes we need to be able to.
Yes, but what ordinarily should happen is that when the government is awarding a contract, maybe to construct a road, there should be some portion known as caution fee that is kept. That money is meant to use to maintain that road. So if the caution fee has been kept aside for that, and the road is not maintained, Who is in charge of that money?
No. That money is not called caution fee, and I'll tell you what it is. It's the money that because I used to know somebody the person who constructed the road from Shagamu to Shagamu Girls' School. That road was constructed over 30 years ago, and it has remained good. They called him 25 years after, and the government gave him money because the road had been, so they gave him, I think, 10% of the total, and that's really what's supposed to happen. After the road, after 20, 25 years, and the road still remains well maintained, then the government gives you a certain percentage of the contract sum. That's really what it's supposed to be. So it's not like it's a caution fee that is held back. No, it's kind of like an award that says, okay, it's like a driver's award. If you don't have an accident in this number of years, we'll give you.
Now, let's also talk about taxpayers' money now. With all of this playing out, do you think taxpayers' monies are being wasted, and how then do we now correct this narrative and have the average citizen or resident in the different states of the Federation decide to pay more taxes? Your thoughts?
Well, my thought when it comes to tax is that government is always at the forefront to demand for tax. But the government does not also ask the people what they want.
No, but looking at all of these projects here, it's taxpayers' money. Whether or not any commission project is functioning, it's taxpayers' money.
If they're not functioning, then there's no need to ask people to pay tax. You can't keep collecting from people and not giving them quality service.
Okay, now, for me, before we wrap up this conversation, this segment now, I would like to also have your thoughts. Interestingly, Bola Tinubu was missing in today's action. What do you make of this?
This question is very funny. Because first, I didn't even expect him to be there. Because, we all know what has happened in the last during the elections, just before the elections. Bola Tinubu and Ambode are not. So that's why I said maybe the president came to show some kind of support for the governor. We know that the Jagaban of Lagos and the current governor, they're not.
But they shook hands.
They're not in good. Well, don't we all do that? It's politics. Politics, no permanent enemies. Have they said it?
Yeah, no permanent enemies. Permanent interests.
Yeah, just permanent interests. So they had permanent interests, right? But it doesn't mean that they're friends, or it doesn't mean that they agree. But at that point in time, because they both needed to keep APC as the ruling party in Lagos, they needed to shake hands on that, basically. So I really didn't expect him to show up, because I didn't expect him to pretend like he was still supporting the guy. He's not. Everybody knows that he's not supporting the guy. So why would he come and be and show up?
Does your thoughts vary on this matter?
I don't. Honestly, I don't understand Nigerian politics. The greed, the selfishness, the corruption in the system, these are all things playing out. It's all about selfish personal interest.
Because you can't talk Lagos State without mentioning the name of Bola.
Yeah, but I'm surprised he didn't show up. So whatever happened that made it impossible for him to come, not to come, is something that he alone can tell us why he didn't come. Because ordinarily, being the national leader of the party, he's supposed to be there, side by side, Mr. President, being that he's also in his own domain.
Okay, in just a sentence now, I'm being told that we don't have any more time. What do you expect from the mannerism, disposition of the governor-elect of Lagos State? Akinwumi Ambode is taking a bow with all of this. What's next? The next 4 years?
For me, it's continuity.
Okay, for me?
For Ambode, for Sanwo-Olu.
Yes.
I think I've been fortunate to be to be close to people who are in Sanwo-Olu's transition committee. And from what I see, the guy seems to be looking at being excellent. I think excellence is the word to expect.
Hopefully the blueprint is followed. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. For me, Ayola Dosumo, as well as Francis Chilaka. And like we always say, time will definitely tell whether or not the dividend of democracy will reach the hands of everyday Nigerians. We'll take a quick break now, and when we return, Plus Politics will continue, and we'll be looking at the delay of the passing of the 2019 budget. Don't go anywhere. Glad to have you back, and you're still watching Plus Politics. Now, the Senate today stepped down the consideration and passage of the 2019 appropriation bill until April 30. The President of the Senate, Bukola Saraki, who made the announcement at plenary, said that the postponement was to allow the Senate Committee on Appropriation to distribute copies of the budget to lawmakers to study. And I still have in our Lagos studio Francis Chilaka, a public affairs analyst. Thank you very much for still staying behind. And we also have Iwenla Mustafa, the Lagos State Secretary of the Liberation Movement. Gentlemen.
Thank you for having me.
It's time to talk about the 2019 budget. This is the second quarter of the year. Unexpectedly, or unexpectedly, today should have been the day where we had seen the passage of the third passage of the appropriation bill, yeah. But it was postponed due to the excuse that details of the budget was not printed out. And the President of the Senate called on the clerk and says that by next week, Monday, at least we should have enough copies to share around so that we don't have issues when it comes to the final word on the passage. What do you make of this excuse for postponement?
It is shameful that we still have a Senate that is being run analog. The Senate shouldn't be giving us this kind of excuse. This is an analog system. We're in the 21st century where everybody has gone computerized. The senators have offices,
of course,
furnished with taxpayers' money. The senators have aides. So what is going on? What stops the clerk of the National Assembly from sending this document to all of them on their emails?
Exactly.
What stops them from reading it online on their emails, on their laptops, making their own recommendations? This is 4 months since December 19th or so when it was sent to them, when the president sent it to them. So what are we talking about?
Do you think this feels the speculation that Bola Tinubu made, saying that all of these delays and distortions is intentional by the National Assembly, because such an excuse seems to be taken with a pinch of salt by most Nigerians?
It is very intentional because this is the first quarter of the year is gone already, and for me, I find this entire budget thing very laughable because we go through the same thing every year in Nigeria. The same thing we went through last year on this budget. I mean, this is the first quarter has gone already. We've not passed the budget to run this year. And by the end of, because at this point, I question, like, do our leaders really, what do they really take us for? That's a big question. Because as a government, we should have moved away from this at this time. For example, by the middle of this year, I expect that the 2020 budget should be ready already and should have passed through all appropriate authorities and all appropriate arms for implementation. But now, as it is, when you begin to see delays like this, of course you know something is fishing. How can you say that you cannot, because you postponed the passing of the bill today because other senators were not, have not been privy to go through the document.
Well, don't you think, Francis, quickly now, Francis, don't you think that possibly they are trying to ensure that they fine-tune every single area, since the lens has been focused on the famous and infamous word, budget pardon?
But I also have a question for the senators. If by Tuesday they read it the third time and people begin to argue about it, what happens? We should have passed this level at this point in time.
Of course,
so talking about people not having copies, what have they been doing? I mean, like you said, what are they taking us for? We're taking us for granted.
For me, we saw different sides to these stories today. Some stories read that the chairman of that committee for the appropriation bill, Senator Danjuma, was not in the section today. Even his deputy also, Sonny Ogoji, was not on the seat today. That's why Senator Bukola Saraki said, okay, since the head of this committee who's supposed to, read out these things for us, in black and white, announce it. Why not let's move this?
To what extent, what are the consequences for these delays? Because now the president has said that in the next 4 years, he's trying to consolidate on the efforts that he's made so far within the first 4 years. And now the National Assembly has said, despite the whole backlash, have said that they have tried and will continue to try to give in their best to ensure that every single Nigeria has the dividend of democracy reach their hands. But with this delay now in passing, it means a delay in implementation, and how effective even that implementation would go. Do you agree?
I mean, it cannot be effective. you cannot get any good result from what's going on right now. And I think, and I want to say this, that 4 months is too long a time.
It is. It's too long
It's too long a time. 4 months is too long a time. I would rather advocate. I think the thing is that because these are senators, whether they come to the chambers or not, they get paid at the end of the month, is a problem. So let us start doing pay as you go.
No, exactly.
Simple. Let us start doing pay as you go.
I think we should get to that point too.
Because I mean, if people are being paid monthly salary and you don't show up, maybe in a month they come 3, 4 times, 5 times.
Who pushes this cause? Because these are the same senators that will push these bills.
Well, we will start from somewhere. Earlier today, I said something that we should begin to look at Nigeria in the next few years where people are paid hourly. The only way you can create employment in Nigeria is when people begin to earn hourly salaries, hourly pay. I can come into Plus TV, I work for 4 or 5 hours, they pay me for 4 or 5 hours, and I go.
Yeah.
That will create the employment we're talking of. There's no employment, there's no employment. There will be employment. But honestly, the National Assembly, as it is, since we came back to democracy, has been a waste to this country.
Okay, now, moving our conversation forward now, to what extent do you also see the 9th National Assembly taking cues from all of these supposed challenges that the 8th National Assembly is facing so far?
What the honest truth, like I've said, is that our National Assembly don't learn from past experiences or past antecedents. These challenges they are going through at the moment, they are not new. The last National Assembly had similar challenges, and these current ones are facing almost the same thing, even more. I expect that things should get better in this country. They should learn from the last Senate. What were their mistakes? What were their challenges? How can we improve better?
The 9th National Assembly is supposed to kick-start and function.
Well, it's sad what we find ourselves.
I think we have a systemic problem, which is we keep recycling the same people. Right now, there are fresh heads, fresh bloods in the National Assembly. Will they be allowed to hold prominent positions?
Not necessarily fresh heads. For example, take the APC, we still see
very few of them.
What I'm saying is that we have some new, fresh people in the National Assembly. Yeah. Some of them are very vibrant. But you see, this whole idea of the Speaker, the Senate President must be an old senator who, while he was just on the floor, never performed, it doesn't add up. I don't know why we keep going in circles in this country. We're not progressing. And yet all these senators, they leave the shores of Nigeria, they go abroad, they see how things operate there. They cannot come back to Nigeria and replicate it. It is shameful. That's my annoyance. It is shameful. The only thing that I know governance has replicated in Nigeria is corruption.
Looking at the House in London, for example, we see how the British Prime Minister Theresa May goes head-on in defending Brexit, for example. Do you think we'll see a change as well in that, especially looking at the 9th National Assembly as well? The 8th, some have had so many backlashes, but they say that they've still passed the most bills, over 280. But now, do you see aggressive engagements that would yield results this time around?
Well, I think we should.
Because the area of implementation will definitely fall on the 9th National Assembly. Passage, well, is still left in the hands of the 8th.
Well, sadly, we cannot really compare what we have in the UK with what our senators are doing here. Of course, but I think we should learn from them. I expect that the next set of people should put up their A game and ensure that things are done quite differently, and because the entire aspect of this thing falls on we the commoners. We elected them there to do the right thing, to ensure that implement laws that will benefit a common man on the streets. But at the end of the day, we're not really getting that dividend. But then let's hope that.
Bola Tinubu described this 8th National Assembly as an adversarial National Assembly trying to frustrate the efforts of the president. Do you think? I've asked this question to you.
Why did he have to wait?
Now that yes, they are saying they want loyalists. Do you think
why did Bola Tinubu have to wait till now to voice this out? Medicine after death. In the next few weeks, the 8th National Assembly will be done with.
Of course.
So why wait? If he claims that they've been padding budget, they've been delaying because they are padding budget, why not cry out then? Why do we always wait for when the person is leaving service or when this person is about to be retired, we'll begin to say, oh, this person did this person did that.
Of course. And also,
the problem we're having with the National Assembly, why you cannot have a vibrant National Assembly like you have in the UK, is because of greed and selfishness. When you remove these two things from the mindset of people there, all they're interested in is their constituency allowance. This allowance. They want to grab and grab and grab and grab. So the ordinary Nigerian out there does not matter. After the elections, you don't get to even see the senators. Even in their constituency offices, you can't see them there.
Do you anticipate this level of absenteeism that we witnessed today at plenary appear again on Tuesday and another possible postponement?
Well, as it is, anything happen in Nigeria, that's the truth. But I don't expect, excuse me, I don't expect any postponement anymore from next week. They've announced next week Tuesday as a day for a passing of the bill. I hope that they can do the needful and pass this bill so things can run normally. You see, one of my biggest problems with the Senate, and not just the Senate, our leaders, one of the reasons why Nigeria is where we are today is this rivalry and witch hunting between our executive arm, legislature. It should stop. I mean, immediately.
But there's a solution to that.
I mean, I love to know the solution.
The solution is simple. We need to have a law that when you decamp from one party to another, you lose your seat.
Well, I hope that law is implementable.
No, if we do that, a lot of things will fall in place.
Because you see the Senate trying to frustrate the presidency.
What happens is that, yes, everybody wants to be on the good side of the president. So if I'm in PDP and I notice that, oh, the president is doing a lot of things for APC, I decamp to APC. 3 months later, you decamp back to PDP when you've gotten what you want. We need to stop it.
It doesn't make any sense.
What other intrigue should we expect after Tuesday, next week?
Well, honestly, I don't even expect a lot of them to come on Tuesday, because to a lot of them, you know, this time around, they'll tell you they are doing one of constituency thing. They're visiting their constituency and all of that. They are rounding up and all of that. So I think the thing is that, you know, the election year in Nigeria. Well, I'll say this. I'll give this credit to Mr. President. Yeah. This is the first time that we're having an election year that executive kept working. And I hope that it will continue.
What do you mean by it kept working?
Yes, contractors were at the sites.
During the election?
During the election, yes. They were busy. They were not disturbed. They were busy. This is the kind of thing we need in this country. And this is where I am saying the National Assembly should continue to work even after the election. They should be more aggressive. They should be more participatory in what happens in the country.
Talking about participatory governance, to what extent now do you see civil society organizations also pushing this cause and ensuring that state and federal actors deliver on their mandate?
Well, civil societies cannot totally do much, because, I mean, at the end of the day, it still lies strictly on us and what we are ready to do.
We compromise, we constitute civil society.
Well, at the end of the day, it's still the senators. Everything still lies on them.
The problem with the civil society, which is a problem with Nigerians, is that we all keep focusing on the presidency.
Yeah.
A house collapses in Lagos, people will say, Mr. President. A car has an accident, they say, Mr. President. What I want the civil society to do right now, for us to get things working in this country, is let us begin to hold our governors, our state houses of assembly, our representatives at the national level accountable. Let us keep running, let us run away from the presidency. Let us hold our governors accountable. Nobody is talking about how accountable their governor is. councillors, local government chairmen. We need to hold them accountable. This is where it starts from. This is where the solution to the malady in Nigeria starts from. Holding these individual structures accountable.
And a question just hit me now as you made mention of holding accountable. Now, you know, I initially said that the passage of this 2019 budget lies in the hands of the 8th National Assembly, and to what extent it is effectively implemented lies in that of the 9th National Assembly. Yeah. How do you think we'll see this regular trend of always saying, pointing that finger, is because you did X, Y, Z, that's why we are not doing better? It's because the previous assembly didn't do X, Y, Z, that's why. So given excuses, some would say that having their pundits do all of the foresight and etc., they can already tell that this is where the line will toe. Do you see that blaming finger continuing again?
You cannot rule out blaming finger in Nigerian politics, because a lot of people in governance are not even ready to work. I keep saying, the National Assembly, every senator has an aide. Every House of Assembly member has an aide. What is the job of this legislative aides? Is to take this budget, for instance, and break it down. In that area where that senator is put in charge, you break it down. His Ministry of Works, you break down the budget to him. You now do a summary for him, an executive brief for him. It is that executive brief he takes with him to make his arguments on the floor. So I don't know what is so difficult about that. So if these senators have aides who cannot function the way they should function, then you sack them.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. Francis Chilaka, you've definitely given us some food for thought, and hopefully Nigerians take a cue from that, as well as Wenda Mustafa, the Lagos State Secretary for the Liberation Movement. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Now, we take a look at plus packages, and when we come back, I'll definitely bring you my take.
The People's Democratic Party, PDP, has rejected the inclusion of Justice J.O.K. Oyewole as a member of the Osun State Election Appeal Tribunal. The National Publicity Secretary of the PDP, Kola Ologbodiyan, spoke to newsmen in Abuja saying there is evidence the tribunal member has a running relationship with the national leader of the All Progressive Congress, Senator Bola Tinubu. Ologbodiyan says the PDP has no confidence that Justice Oyewole will be fair and unbiased, and thus wants him removed from the tribunal panel in the interest of justice.
Our party vehemently and unequivocally rejects the inclusion of Honorable Justice J.O.K. Oyewole as a member of the Osun State Governorship Election Appeal Panel. Our demand is predicated on the fact that Honorable Justice Oyewole has clear connections with the All Progressives Congress, an interested party in the appeal. In this regard, the PDP has already petitioned the President of the Court of Appeal, objecting to the inclusion of Honorable Justice Oyewole in the appeal panel based on the clear likelihood of his being biased against the person of our candidate, Senator Ademola Adeleke, and the PDP, under which he contested the 2018 Osun governorship election. It is therefore a fact known to us and members of the public that Honorable Justice Oyewole has a strong link with the APC and its leader, Senator Ahmed Tinubu. As such, he should not sit as a member of a judicial panel for a governorship election dispute between the PDP and the All Progressives Congress. As a party, we do not have confidence in Justice Oyewole, so the PDP vehemently objects to his inclusion, as is likely to be biased against our party and our candidate, Senator Ademola Adeleke.
It's now time to bring you my take, and as I always say, timing is always of essence in every single aspect of life. It either makes or mars efforts, and despite today's commissioning of projects, the example of the Ikeja bus terminal still lingers in the minds of Lagosians Nigerians as a whole. Till this very moment, the Ikeja bus terminal is yet to commute a single Lagosian across a route, let alone 100,000 of them across 23 routes. Some others have raised the question, why do we commission projects that wouldn't either endure or be useful at all to Nigerians? To achieve what? Is it to show the whole world that things are working here? The truth is really nothing is really working here yet. This brings to our mind maintenance culture as well. Until Lagosians and Nigerians are convinced the government of the day, irrespective of administration, is able to bring development and achieving infrastructural goals, wasting taxpayers' money will continue to be the notion held. Time will definitely tell to what extent the governor-elect of Lagos State will really be able to reel in a new chapter beyond the current successes. For the passage of the budget, every delay means an extended time in delivery of the dividends of democracy to the masses. That is, little or no effective implementation. We truly deserve better as Nigerians. Advanced climes are no different from Nigeria. It is all about putting efforts to a working structure, delivering right on time, maintaining and reinventing efforts and the will. It is your responsibility, mine, to put government as well at all levels on their toes to give us the best Nigeria we deserve. I'm David Alabi. Many thanks for watching the show tonight, and it's always a pleasure having you. Same time tomorrow, it's a date.